Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you taking the time. So, what are some of the most common phishing tactics targeting your members at Navy Federal?
From a commonality standpoint, I mean, what's been going on for 20 years is still going on today, which is fake emails pretending to be brands, including Navy Federals that aren't. But one of the newer wrinkles that we see exploited, and we refer to the term social engineering, but really leverages SMS messaging, pretending to be us, and really looks very similar to us, asking you if you've done a fraudulent transaction, asking you to confirm that transaction, and then oftentimes following up with a phone call. And that's where the real social engineering begins.
Yeah, I think the social engineering tactics haven't necessarily changed and they work. So, why change them? What are the biggest challenges that Navy Federal faces in preventing phishing attacks?
We work with a large number of vendors to help do site takedowns. We try and do that with as much speed as we can. But the key is knowing about it as fast as possible. So we're out doing sort of brand abuse looking, but also getting our members to report to us when they get a suspicious email, when they get a suspicious text with telephone numbers. That really helps us because speed is of the essence. No matter how many people we try and educate, there's always going to be somebody to fall for it. And we have lots of layered controls as well, looking for suspicious activity. But knowing about the bad domain or the bad number enables us to initiate the takedown.
Yeah, and I think that's something we hear from people we talk to. Like, does reporting really help? Right? If I report to the platform, is that really helping? And we try and explain, yes, absolutely, it helps report. Not only report to the platform, but also FBI and FTC, so we can track that data. So reporting is just so important, so we can get ahead of this. How does Navy Federal stay ahead of new phishing techniques?
We're very involved in the industry, so we're always talking to our peers. The larger banks might see something before we do, but in this space, we're all very collaborative and take an us versus them mentality. Us being financial services, them being the bad guys. So from there, we definitely share what we know with other credit unions, with other financial institutions. It's definitely a game of whack-a-mole, if you will, because when one bank stops it, they'll pop up somewhere else. And like I said earlier, I mean, they really do look legitimate, and the technology that they use has gotten better over time. So from that perspective, it's a challenge that we all face together against the fraudsters.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are up against the world, right? It's not just a couple bad actors in your neighborhood or even America. You guys are up against the world, and that's really great that the banks are coming together and helping each other out, because I can't see how we're going to tackle these problems without coming together. Both government, banks, right, law enforcement, nonprofits. It's just a huge problem. How can members verify the legitimacy of communications they receive from Navy Federal? So particularly if they are unsure whether it's a phishing attempt or if it's legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing that we tell people, that I tell my friends, I tell my neighbors, I tell my family, if you doubt it, don't interact with it, right? Like, don't even worry about it, right? If we really need to, we'll get a hold of you some way, or we'll create some friction. If it's an email, I mean, we have a security zone, so we'll have your access number, like the last four, in there. If it's an SMS message, we use a specific short code, which is like a 6-digit number. Fraudsters are generally not using, they're not spoofing that. If it's a phone call, you really can't, right? Like, so there's good spoofing technology. The fraudsters can make the call look like it's coming from us. Certainly, some people have the plans on their phone that can detect it, but the reality is the fraudsters are getting really good, and you won't hurt our feelings if you hang up the phone and you call us back at our number. So, and I think that's the best advice that I can give.
I think that's like the golden rule. Unsolicited communication, always research it. But it's so tedious, right? Especially if you're busy, you're distracted. The kids are running around in the background. You're trying to get this thing done for work. You just want to hit that easy button and be like, okay, it's Navy Federal. Let me just talk to them and solve this problem. But you really do got to slow down and just confirm that communication. And you're right, especially with a phone call.
And it's why the fraudsters leverage fraud, or the IRS or some other. It gets your blood pressure up and it makes you think a little bit less critically, I think. And from that standpoint, it's a great attack vector for them. But it also, at the same time, you just have to remember that if you have any suspicions, hang up and call us. They won't want you to hang up and call us, but that's the best way to go. And then we'll take care of you that way.
What is Navy Federal doing as an organization to help protect Navy Federal members?
We have a whole plan around this. From my perspective, I think the fraudsters, we've hardened our account takeover defenses, and the bad guys have figured out it's sometimes easier to convince members to send them money, right? So there's all sorts of scams, investment scams, romance scams. But from a pure phishing standpoint, we have transaction monitoring. We look for suspicious activity all throughout before the login, throughout the login, and adding a payee and that process. So there's a whole ecosystem of controls where we have a whole fraud detection portfolio to enhance that, because it's never good enough. And then things like this, right? Trying to educate the member in line versus sending a quarterly email, but within the transaction stream, try and verify when we're suspicious. That we're never done. We're never satisfied. We can always get better, but it is an ongoing battle between us and the fraudsters. But getting our members to help in that is extremely important.
Yeah, I think the tech piece is never going to 100% solve it. For all the points that you brought up, the human brain has all these just little weaknesses built into it. So the tech piece is amazingly important, and we need to stay in the game and keep adapting and improving. But we also have that human piece, and I can't see us ever being able to just do one without the other. Is there anything else you want people to know?
Hang up and call us back. Like, I can't say it too much. Probably a once-a-month conversation with my dad, and just remind him of the process, and try and talk to our members the same way we talk to my family and my neighbors. If you try and remember too many things or figure it out, like, always remember, like with Gen AI and other things, like the fraudsters' messaging is getting a lot better. You're not worrying about the Nigerian prince with spell check errors anymore. It's just easier. Hang up and call us back.
That 1 minute of extra effort, even though like at the time it's, oh my gosh, this is so tedious, but that 1 minute can save you, I mean, honestly, hundreds and thousands of dollars, right? I mean, we have just terrible stories of, if they just would have taken that 1 minute, they may have been able to save themselves. Or even pulling someone in, a trusted network, right? If you're a little unsure, call your son, your daughter, your mom, your dad, whatever, somebody in your trusted network, and be like, does this seem right to you? Because to your point, they're not going to be emotionally affected. So
no, that's great. That's a good second piece of advice. I like that.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
No, thanks for having me.